Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
There is controversy today over new standards for teaching Black history in the state of Florida. The new curriculum from the Florida Board of Education includes instruction for middle school students to learn, quote, how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
What?
That language drew some sharp criticism, including from Vice President Kamala Harris, who is heading to Florida today.
Just yesterday in the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
The state's largest teachers union called the new standards a step backward and said students deserve the full truth of American history. This comes after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill last year regulating how race is taught in public schools. For its part, the Florida Department of Education says the standards do incorporate all components of Black history, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay, if you find yourself, toiling to try and find the good in slavery, you've gone down a really twisted road. Something has happened to you, something really bad, something evil, something ugly, something, opportunistic has happened to your brain, where you say, I'm going to teach that slavery had benefits. What benefits could it have had? Oh my God, this is so Kamala Harris is on her way down here to Florida. She's not coming to South Florida. She's going to Jacksonville, Florida. I think she left about an hour ago. I saw her, a quick video on Twitter of her boarding her plane about an hour ago. So I expect her here this afternoon. I cannot wait for her to actually convene the school teachers in this here state who are sickened, and sick and tired of this governor telling them how to teach history, how to teach American history. Okay, I mean, everybody is just disgusted. Civil rights activists are disgusted. Parents are disgusted. Students are disgusted. Educators are disgusted. 150,000 school teachers today, 150,000 Florida school teachers today said this is a step backward. Why are we doing this? Why are we going to lie to our students as a choice? Why is that the choice? What benefits could there be? I swear to God, this is what they want. And teachers said, I'm 30 years in. Here's a quote. I'm 30 years in, going on 31, and I am not tired. I am tired of foolishness that has nothing to do with education. And I'm tired of us making decisions that are not the best for the kids. That is a teacher at St. Lucia's Community High School. St. Lucia's is where Jessica went to school. That is where I had that argument all those years ago about Christopher Columbus and teaching the real history of Christopher Columbus. And they failed her because I had her write a paper about the true, they've never in Florida taught the true history of anything that has to do with, American history. But now they're really going so far back that they want to rewrite what slavery actually is and what it caused and what it led to and Jim Crow and they don't want to teach anything about there are race riots that happened here in Florida. I told you about one of them a while ago. Okay. It was called Axe Handle Saturday, right? Axe Handle Saturday wasn't that long ago. It was 1960. And that was a sit-in at lunch counters. Where a lot of people white people too, black people, all did sit-ins at lunch counters to protest segregated lunch counters. And the white supremacists in Florida went crazy. They couldn't handle it. They couldn't deal. They couldn't cope, right? And so they all got axe handles and started bashing in skulls. About 200 skulls is what they did. That was fun. And then before that, we had, race riots like 3 years apart. We had one in Rosewood, which John Singleton made a movie about it in, the 90s called Rosewood. Does anybody remember that movie? Why did he choose Rosewood as the race, riot that he wanted to explore and put in front of black people and Americans? Why did he choose that particular one? When we know that there are others. There's the Tulsa there's the Tulsa massacre, Black Wall Street. We know that there's the Atlanta race massacre. We know there's a whole bunch. There's Ocoee, Florida, right? He chose Rosewood because Rosewood, Florida, which was a middle class and better. Middle class and upper middle class black community after World War I in Florida, where black people formed their own businesses. They formed their own community. They built things. They did commerce, and people were prospering. Everything was cool. They were landowners. They were doing really, really well. And people didn't like that in the neighboring, white neighborhoods. Let's call them neighborhoods. And they decided that they were going to, burn down Rosewood. They decided that they would, hobble the progress, that they would turn the clock back, which is kind of Ron DeSantis' theory of time. Go backwards, right? And Rosewood was chosen by I'm guessing, because it was the only case that I can find, and it was the first time that reparations for such violence against a peaceful black community was ever made. This was under a governor that, when I first came to Florida, we had a governor named Lawton Chiles. He was a Democrat. We haven't had a Democratic governor in 100 years here in Florida, but that's how old I am. And Lawton Chiles actually heard and learned about Rosewood. And when people petitioned the state for reparations, he sat and listened. He saw. He said, okay, here's what we'll do. If you can find people who can show me that they owned land in Rosewood, Florida, and that land was wrongfully taken from them, or that they were burned out, or that they never went back to Rosewood after the massacre because they felt unsafe there, we'll pay each of those people who can show a connection to ownership of land there $150,000. Well, there were about 300 people that could do that. And they were paid reparations. And then he also offered scholarships, because children who would have inherited their parents' land, who would have inherited their grandparents' land, first generation, second generation, third generation, wealth creation through land ownership, well-known theory in the United States, land, it's the very man's soul, land. Okay? And so they started a scholarship fund for kids to go and get their school paid for because they were deprived of their family's wealth. And about 297 kids qualified for those scholarships. So that's what reparations looks like. And Florida, believe it or not, was one of the first states to do that. I think it's the only state to do that. Maybe you know something I don't know. That'd be fine. But so now he doesn't want to teach Rosewood. He doesn't want to teach what happened in Ocoee. Ocoee, Florida, was the worst election massacre. Ocoee was another African-American community. It was a black town in Florida, Ocoee, and there was a lot of people owned a lot of land, and they were black people, and they were prospering, doing just fine. And a rich landowner in Ocoee decided that he had won the right to vote, and he was going to cast his ballot. Well, the white people they were beside themselves. What do you mean he's going to vote? Don't you think that's a bridge too far? Can't you just be happy that you have land, that we let you have property, and that you're not it? And this was a massacre on election day. They said, you didn't pay the poll tax, and you blah, blah, blah. And he went to a lawyer. And the lawyer said, go back and, you get to vote. Go back and vote. And he was, run out of the election. He was run out of the polls, and he went to his friend's house. And the Klan came to his friend's house and killed his friend. They lynched his friend. They hung his friend. So, he doesn't want to teach that either. Yeah, now he says what he wants to teach is how black people benefited from slavery and how in these massacres black people fought back. He wants to say that violence not only visited black people, but that black people participated in the violence.
Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
Extremists pass laws that target our friends and neighbors because of who they are and who they love. And at this moment in our country, we just witnessed the United States Supreme Court strike down affirmative action, give businesses the right to discriminate, and deny debt relief to millions of Americans with student loans. All the while, these same extremists, in most cases, refuse to pass reasonable gun safety laws to keep our children safe. And speaking of our children, extremists pass book bans to prevent them from learning our true history. Book bans in this year of our Lord 2023. And while they do this, check it out. They push forward revisionist history. Just yesterday in the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
She's pissed, and I don't blame her. This is such a disservice. This is child abuse, is what it is. You're not going to orient a kid into the world by telling them the true history of their own country. They're not. I mean, how do you think you keep Holocaust from happening? You teach the children about the Holocaust, and you teach them in Germany how it happened and where they went wrong, so that when they see the signs of fascism percolate in its ugly little, tentacles into their lives, into their modern, successful lives as young, modern Germany, and the children of a young, progressive, modern Germany, they know to cut its little head off before it flourishes into full frontal fascism. So that's how, that's why in Germany, things like the swastika are banned, so that they never, ever have to go through the horror of what they did to themselves and to others ever again. And here in the United States, oh no, let's repeat history. In fact, let's go way back into the Wayback Time Machine and pretend none of this ever happened and teach kids as if this is a confederacy that didn't have a civil war that it lost. Let's just pretend that's what it is. And if we pretend long enough and hard enough, maybe it will actually manifest itself. This is like the ultimate treasure mapping by white supremacists I've ever seen in my life. You know what treasure mapping is, right? Yeah, because I believed in it. I did it my whole career. I believed in it because, I just thought if I was single-minded and focused on my goal, on my ultimate goal of being a national radio person, of being somebody who had a national voice. I didn't care if I was loved. I just used to say, I don't care if I'm loved. I just care if I'm heard. Been quoted as saying that. And then it would have a treasure map where it would have the business card of, the head of the Death Star, the Dark Star, whatever you want to call Clear Channel. And it would have, premier radio networks and all these things on it, right? And it happened. So I believe it. But are they actually treasure mapping racist Confederate America? Are they actually trying to, do it by depriving children of the ability to know the truth about a country that has come so far because of perseverance? See, this is what I don't understand. Okay, if this isn't about driving a wedge into this country, if this isn't about separating us by race, if this isn't about saying that a certain race's history didn't happen and another race's history had a different result than it actually did with regard to owning people for the ability to win a primary election in the Republican Party, to use race as a giant cudgel If this is not that, then why wouldn't you want to teach that what we have today is a multiracial, multicultural society as a result of excellence, perseverance, and faith? If you say that those are the things that you're for, you know, the whole pull yourself up from your bootstraps crowd, well, there's no better example than African Americans post-World War I in Florida owning their own land and having commerce and enriching themselves through their own hard work and creating a lawful, peaceful community of haves, of people who farmed and worked their own land and had their own stores and sewed clothes for other people and sold them and framed pictures and did everything, you know, ran banks and did all the things that towns do. Why wouldn't you want to teach that that is the result that you want in America? Why wouldn't you want to teach that this kind of perseverance, this kind of sweat equity, this kind of hard work and faith, because you're going to find no more religious people than African American communities who were endowed with the benefits of their hard work after World War I in the United States. You're not going to find anybody more more church going than them. You're not going to find anybody that loves Jesus more than them. You're just not going to find more churched women than you would in a town like that. So why wouldn't you want to teach it that way? Why would you want to do it this way? And this way is covering it up. This way is disingenuous. This way is dishonest. This way doesn't respect, it actually is bearing false witness to history for your political benefit, which I think is one of the big 10 that you don't do. I don't know. But this is what's going on in the Republican culture wars. This is what's going on in the Republican primary. And why? Why? Well, you would think if you wanted to win a Republican primary and you were in a primary against a guy who's been indicted already twice and is facing a third indictment probably next week, maybe even at the end of today. Okay? But you got a guy who's facing criminal charges of inciting violence and depriving people of their civil rights and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Your beloved patriotic, feelings should be a little hurt by the fact that this is what he's being charged with. Defrauding the United States, defrauding our beautiful, blessed country. So you would think that if you were running against a guy like that, you would run against a guy like that. But they can't. They can't. You know why they can't? Because they're afraid of the voters. Not because they're afraid of him. He's going to probably die in jail or under house arrest or one of the most horrible, reputations in the world will be what he is dealing with upon his death. He won't be no Tony Bennett, okay? That will not happen. But they can't.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
I was teaching at Florida International University before Ron DeSantis was born. Now he sidles up to me and tells me what I can't teach in my classroom. Excuse me, sir, you're not my boss. You're not the boss of me. This man, when he taught school for a very brief period of time, some of his students claimed that Ron DeSantis taught the Civil War as if the Confederates had a point.
Right.
They lost property.
Yeah.
Some of his students said that Ron DeSantis taught them that abortion was wrong. Now he's teaching this in his classes, his political agenda, his personal agenda. Now he comes as governor and tells us we can't teach unless we respect what he prescribes as very, very rigid rules of academic freedom. He's a hypocrite. He's an absolute hypocrite. And what he's doing, frankly, is just totally destroying education in Florida.
Right.
I dare this man to show me one school in Florida where critical race theory is being taught. Just one school. One school in Florida where students are being told, feel bad because of something someone did 20 years ago. Where is that happening, Ron? He cannot point out where this is all made up. It's fake, aimed at getting him to the White House. This man is running for president and using race as a cudgel to beat the votership over the head.
That is it. And the reason why it's a culture war thing for Ron DeSantis against Donald Trump, which is who he's running against, okay, for the nomination of his party. The reason why he doesn't take Donald Trump on head on as Donald Trump faces his third criminal indictment for defrauding the beloved United States of America is because he's afraid that primary voters, who are a very small sliver of our population here in these United States, okay, you have Republicans at large, and they're not the majority in this country. And then inside that not majority of this country, you have Republicans who vote. That would be about 40% of those. And then inside of those 40%, you have a tiny little sliver of people who will show up and vote in a presidential primary. Okay? And by them, I mean the nominees, with exceptions made for Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas, who doesn't have a prayer, and Christie from New Jersey. Those two are the only two that will criticize Donald Trump. The rest of them are going to wage culture wars and appeal to white supremacist Christian nationalist sentiment that are the primary voters who would vote for Donald Trump. Now, why would they not vote for Donald Trump? Well, they would. So what they're betting on here is that somehow Donald Trump self-destructs, or somehow Donald Trump, makes a plea deal, or somehow Donald Trump takes himself off the playing field, or the long arm of the law takes him off the playing field, and they will be the only ones left on the playing field, and they will never have trashed Donald Trump. And so the primary voters can have a clean bill of health, right? The primary voters will say, well, Ron DeSantis may be, my second choice, but he never trashed Donald Trump. Chris Christie did. Do you know what I'm saying? This is why it's a culture war. And they are willing to sacrifice at the altar of their power to be the also ran, or the number two, is racism, is white supremacist, is white supremacy, Christian, white nationalist Christian ideology. And they're willing to play that game. They're willing to do this damage to a country that doesn't feel like that. The country doesn't feel this way. Just a tiny little sliver of the country feels this way. And they are pathetic, and they are, beyond help at this point. Okay? The people who really are fearful that they will be replaced by 11% of the population, or in my case, 1% of the population, right? That there's a whole thing that's in the, it's already in the oven and it's cooking, and the recipe calls for them to be destroyed and replaced. That's insanity, okay? That's paranoia. That's a mental illness. You really need to get help for that. If you believe that people are trying to replace you, it makes no sense. But that is why they're playing this culture war game. That is why Ron DeSantis is doing what he's doing, but he's actually doing it. He's not just talking about it. He's not just pointing at. See, the same thing with Alabama. Alabama is one of those real sick places too. Alabama is one of those states that had to be policed by the Supreme Court because they would disenfranchise African American voters. In fact, it's going on today. What? Yeah, today. So here's the thing. The Supreme Court, as you know, has been ruling on these gerrymandered maps, right? And they've been saying that these gerrymandered maps in New York, gerrymandered maps in Alabama, gerrymandered maps in North Carolina, remember that? That they all need to be redrawn because they were racially gerrymandered, and it's wrong. It's not the American way. We don't do that. You may have gutted the Voting Rights Act, but what your maps look like is unconstitutional. They're racially gerrymandered. We do equal protection in this country, blah, blah, blah. Go back and redraw them. Well, I told you in Alabama, they have one black district, just one, right? And so the Supreme Court of the United States of America actually told Alabama Republicans that they need to redraw their map and create a second majority black congressional district this week. They need to do it. You know what they said? F you. I'm not kidding. They flipped off the United States Supreme Court rather than make it right, rather than do the right thing, rather than making it a more equal state under law, which is what's required if you're a legislator in Alabama. This is how we end up with Coach Tuberville. This is how we end up with Roy Moore, the child molester. Okay? This is how you end up with candidates like this actually winning in Alabama. This is how you get crazy people sent to the most deliberative body in the history of the world, the United States Senate. This is how gerrymander maps. This is how you rig the system against thinking, thoughtful, persevering, enterprising, striving people of faith. That's what you do. So the Supreme Court said to the Republican-controlled legislature, you need to pass a map with 2 majority black seats, 2 majority black districts. And the best that the Republicans would do, they said we could do a district that's 42% black. And we could do a Senate district that's 38% black. Well, if you did that, the African Americans who live in Alabama would never have a real shot at winning anything. Period. You would end up with more Tommy Tubervilles and more Roy Moores. And what's her name? That King lady. Oh, she's back crap too. Virginia. No, is it Virginia Fox? I think I'm thinking of. Anyway, these Southern people, they are just. But Kevin McCarthy, who's responsible to uphold the Constitution as the Speaker of the House, he's so scared about losing any seat because he's only got 4 that he won't intervene. He won't actually create this at a federal level. He won't do it. It's unbelievable. It's going on now.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Just take a look at what AP courses are deemed educationally valuable in the state of Florida, per the book banning wannabe president. European history, of course, along with courses on the history and language of Italy, where DeSantis' family hails from, Germany, and Japan, which happened to be the Axis countries the U.S. fought during World War II. Now, whether Ron would consider fascist Italy to have been a bad guy in that war, well, that's up for debate.
Oh, man. So the Axis countries be the bad guys in Ron DeSantis' world? And why Spanish? Why Spanish? Well, the Spanish enslaved a whole lot of Floridians, too, prior to the white people enslaving the black people. You know, when the Spanish came here in like 1560 or some crazy-ass, time, what did they do? They enslaved the indigenous, people here in Florida until they died of diseases and overwork. And then, they concentrated on getting some Africans over here and enslaved them until they died of diseases. I mean, come on, this is crazy. This is mass madness, and these are the only approved courses. How about American history? I didn't see it in Joy Reid's, accounting of what Ron DeSantis will allow to be taught in school. I didn't see that you could teach American history because I don't think you can. I think you can only teach Confederate history.
Yeah, Randy, you said the Spanish brought the blacks over or the Africans over to be slaves. No, they brought the Africans over for a unique job opportunity and a chance to build their skills, you know?
Oh, yeah, and so back to that. What is the benefit that was received by African Americans by being enslaved? What was the benefit that they got, that they earned, that they achieved? What was the benefit? I know it wasn't reading because that was illegal. So I know it wasn't writing, which naturally goes with reading. Couldn't have been. I know it wasn't math because if you can't read and you can't write, you can't do math. So what was it that benefited them?
They were cotton professionals.
Oh.
And they were critical injury managers.
So the touch, the feel of cotton. That's what the benefit was. They learned the touch and feel of cotton. And they also apparently learned how to shoe a horse, which is, useful if you live in Wellington, the equestrian portion. of Florida. Honestly, I can't even imagine like what he's going to allow to be taught that was a benefit of being enslaved. What, heat tolerance when we put you in the hot box? I mean, what actually was the benefit? Tolerance in general for stupid white people? Is that what the benefit is? I don't know, but this is so, look, it's insane because he's doing it to win a primary because he will not criticize the front runner. Now, who really wants to win bad enough that they would rather not criticize the guy who's running against them, but would rather criticize ordinary Floridians? Pick on teachers and say they're woke. Pick on Disney, say they're woke. Pick on tourism, say it's woke. Pick on, climate change. Don't protect the environment. Don't protect the coral reefs where that's also a tourist thing. Don't protect the fish. Also, Florida is one of the world's best fishing places. Costa Rica ain't bad either. But they wouldn't let their fish die. Okay, they just they really wouldn't. But I mean, why? How is that like a smart guy? How is that a good, smart, tough guy?
Well, he did import-export. He imported some Argentinians from Texas and exported them immediately to Martha's Vineyard. That was.
But I'm saying, what makes him, a strategic genius? What makes him, like the guy that you would trust with foreign policy if he's not even willing to stand up to the Republican Party's front runner for the same job? He won't even compete honestly with that person for the same job by pointing out that person is unfit to serve. It's really pretty stunning. It really is pretty stunning. All right, Sue in California.
Oh, hi, Randy.
Hey.
It's so good to talk to you for the first time.
Oh, hey.
Hey. Aw, thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, well, you said early in your show you were interested in other cases of reparations to people, and last year they finally finalized giving the deed back to the Bruce family. L.A. County deeded the land back to them.
Right, one family.
Yeah, I know. But
I will say California, I know, is thinking about, doing massive reparations, okay? But it hasn't happened yet. And Bruce's Beach is the one you're talking about.
It is.
Yeah, that was a great victory. That was really good for that family.
It really was.
Yeah.
Can I just say real quick, like just how this happened? How they took it away from them. They bought the land in 1912, and then they got so racially harassed from the white people all around them that in the 20s, the Manhattan City Council condemned the property and then took the land through eminent domain.
Yeah, it was
That's
pretty.
What happened.
It was pretty innovative to do the right thing there. But I mean,
$20 million it's worth now.
But honestly, why do we have to do stuff like that? Why can't it just right? Why can't you just have people come and show that they have rights to that land? I mean,
exactly.
The story of being run off land, it's the same story here in Florida. It's the same story in Ocoee, and it's the same story in Rosewood. Okay, Rosewood is the only case that I've ever been aware of where all the people of the town who were run out of that town based on the fact this was the Emmett Till thing too. I mean, I'm not saying that there was that Emmett Till lived in Florida. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it was an Emmett Till-ish sort of an accusation, right? That led to Rosewood being destroyed by white people. It was a girl had said that she was attacked by a black kid or whatever. And to tell you the truth, the mom said, it never happened. Don't. But they came and they decimated the town. And so they said, look, if you could show that you lived in Rosewood, if you could show that you had, and people are so intimidated by this kind of Klan activity that's very prevalent in taking people's homes and their land in Tulsa, in Georgia, in California. And people don't think that it happened in California, but it did.
But it did.
It did.
Yeah. And I'm just heartsick about you guys in Florida there. I'm so sorry about everything that's going on there. It's scary. I have relatives and friends that live in Florida.
Well, listen, it's new-ish in Florida because we have, a white supremacist, Christian nationalist governor.
I know.
Whose wife thinks she's Evita Perón. Okay, we've got this really sick, twisted family, and he's too much of a coward. He's too much of a chicken. Wow, that's thunder. Yeah, that's thunder. He's too much of a chicken turd to take on Trump directly and say, Donald Trump was bad for America because Donald Trump defrauded America, or because Donald Trump tried to cheat, or because Donald Trump knew he lost an election and still tried to stay in power, which is anti-democratic.
You think?
Yeah, and so instead, he's waging war on us ordinary Floridians. And I got news for you: most people are not into it. They're just not.
Good.
Yeah.
I know. I love your politics. I'm right there with you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. John in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
First off, I'm sorry you live in Florida these days.
I know.
But I'm a first-generation American. Both my parents were born in different countries, so please don't hang the slave thing on me. But I have a question. I took 6 history courses before I was 18 in high school, and not one of them suggested that California was a slave state. And it was one of the only reasons I've never taken the offers from my parents' countries to go live there and become citizens there, because I thought, maybe life ain't that bad out here. It's kind of a leading edge. But now there's this whole move to get reparations for it's pretty broad-ranging. And my thinking is, Richmond, Virginia was the head of the Confederacy. Why don't we start there and, deal with history in an accurate sense? And, if people don't get it, okay, burn a few state buildings, go around to the other slave states, burn a few of those state buildings.
No.
But well, I'm just exaggerating, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I don't. I don't know what you're saying. Okay, so the reason why California is considering reparations, it's for 4,000 very specific enslaved black people who were brought to California to work in the gold mines. So perhaps it doesn't look the same way that plantation life looks as far as cotton being a crop, or corn, or, sugarcane in Florida. But that's the reparations that are being considered. It was between 1850 and 60 where people were taken and brought to California to work in your gold mines. There's gold in them thar hills, but they didn't want to go get it. They wanted enslaved people to go get it.
Mary had a little man. False. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
To say that I created a film that encourages blacks not to get adequate medical care is just completely abhorrent.
Don't misuse my words.
It's the witness's time. Do not censor the witness.
I'm not censoring the witness. I'm not censoring the witness. He's still talking.
It's my time, and I've given it to the witness. Do not censor him.
I'm not censoring him.
If the views that you and others have applied to me, I've attributed to me, if they were actually true, I can see why I shouldn't be able to testify here today. Those are not true. These are defamations and malignancies that are used to censor me, to prevent people from listening to the actual things that I'm saying.
Wow. As a reminder, we have an exclusive town hall with RFK Jr. next Tuesday night right here in New York City.
I told you, the Republican money, the Republican Party, the Republican media, the conservative media, they love the paranoid RFK. They love his rants. They love his Nazi, comparisons between, wearing a mask in the middle of a global pandemic and Nazi Germany. Right? They love it. They're all about it. And it's really, listen, the more that people get to know today's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the lousier his polling is. I looked at new polling today. Remember, they were saying Robert F. Kennedy has got 20% of the Democratic primary voters. They were looking at him. They were interested in what he was saying. They were, all about him. They liked him. As of today, 9%, down from 20 to 9. And his unfavorables went from 40 to 69%, 70% of the Democratic primary voting population has a very unfavorable opinion of him. The words that they used most often were crank, conspiracy theorist, crackpot, nut job. That's not, but they're going to host him. They're going to host him on the Fox. Why not? Why not host him on the Fox? They never, ever, ever, ever have a problem running into the truth on Fox because they've never met the truth. They've never saw the truth. They never heard the truth. They don't know the truth. They wouldn't shake the truth's hand if the truth walked up to them and introduced itself to them. You know what I'm saying? So listen, I got to tell you, so after that brief, declaration that poor RFK Jr. was being censored by big badass Stacey Plaskett of the Virgin Islands, who's a brilliant freaking lawyer, by the way, who was able to point out yesterday that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. required anybody who was going to his home during the COVID pandemic to have proof of vaccination. Yeah, that's true. And also had his children, all of them, vaccinated. She was, able to introduce that as evidence yesterday, right?
John F. Kennedy's grandson, not mincing words when it comes to his cousin RFK Jr.'s.
No, this is good too, but this is what I meant.
No, Mr. Kennedy's own family decries his stance on vaccines, and families disagree on a lot of things. I got family members that, we all disagree, so that doesn't mean anything. But the fact that he has famously sent a request to a party guest that they had to be vaccinated to come to his party. And I'd like to introduce into the record a letter from Louis Silkin, a law firm representing Mr. Kennedy, which states, as he has stated repeatedly, he vaccinated all his children, and I'd like that to be introduced into the record, but tells the Black community and myself, a mother of 5 Black children, that I should really be careful and not necessarily have the same safeguards to protect my family, my children, from a virus that has killed millions of people because I'm Black. There's no secret that this is an amplification of his own platform.
And what is he doing while she's introducing a lawyer letter from his law firm indicating that he has indeed vaccinated all of his children, all of them. And also they were able to play some videotape of him saying out loud that he came across some hikers on his daily hike in California and saw one of the hikers had a baby and said to the hiker, if I were you, I wouldn't have that baby vaccinated, and then claimed that he never told anybody not to have their children vaccinated. I mean, it's mind-blowingly, crazy what he's doing under oath, especially now. But Stacey Plaskett was able to show that he's just disconnected from reality. So what does he do while she's actually introducing this evidence? Did you see what he did? He reaches into his, a lawyer's, I love lawyer office supplies. They have like the best, the banker's box is cool, the accordion pleated, file folder I love Howard had the best school supplies. So he reaches into his, file folder, his accordion pleated, and he pulls out his phone while he's testifying in Congress and starts texting somebody. Kind of a nutbag is he? I mean, it's very interesting what they let him get away with anyway. So Jack Schlossberg, who is a cousin of RFK Jr.'s, he is the grandson of JFK, the former president of the United States of America. And Jack Schlossberg actually said, my cousin is deranged. There's something wrong with him. And the whole family is embarrassed.
John F. Kennedy's grandson, not mincing words when it comes to his cousin RFK Jr.'s 2024 run.
He's trading in on Camelot, celebrity, conspiracy theories, and conflict for personal gain and fame. I've listened to him. I know him. I have no idea why anyone thinks he should be president. What I do know is his candidacy is an embarrassment.
Jack Schlossberg took to Instagram to blast Robert F. Kennedy's constant stream of misinformation, and he endorsed Joe Biden in the process.
It's not misinformation at this point. It's disinformation. And the difference is misinformation is like gossip. You just don't know any better. And disinformation is what he's doing. Knowing what he's saying is a conspiracy theory and saying it anyway as fact. Okay? That's disinformation. That's propaganda. And that's what he's doing. And, his cousin, remember yesterday I said, now you're free to form your own conclusion about why he's doing it? Well, his family is saying he's doing it because he wants to be relevant. He's doing it for fame. He's doing it for, eyeballs. He's doing it because he wants people to pay attention to him. And the saddest thing is, so I was watching yesterday and I pointed out that, Dennis Kucinich is his campaign manager. Dennis Kucinich is the campaign manager for RFK Jr. And, in the moment when I was watching the hearings yesterday and I was listening and cutting it up and, marking the segments I wanted, I saw Dennis Kucinich and I saw his wife, Elizabeth, who's gorgeous. And, they were both sitting there supporting him. And I couldn't put it together quite yesterday. I couldn't put it together completely. So now I understand it. Now I think I do. So just so you understand, first of all, Dennis Kucinich was never really pro-choice. That's an interesting little detail, but I don't think that has anything to do with this. So Dennis Kucinich and his wife have always been, vegan and very against processed food and, poison in food, etc. Elizabeth has made some very good documentaries about food and the badness that goes into some of it. Okay. And I think because RFK and Monsanto and the way we, fertilize fields for food and things I think that might be the common bond between the two families. I think that might be a bit, and also the attention-seeking gene that seems to be showing itself inside both men. You combine those, and what you get is Dennis Kucinich being campaign manager for RFK.
The Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, and right after he announced that he was going to be hosting Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he then hosted Tomi Lahren, I don't know, some blonde podcaster, to discuss the controversy of Jason Aldean's video being taken down by country music television. Country music television. Whatever. Okay, this was the convo.
Jason Aldean is not picking the place the way some people are trying to portray this. And I think it's done on purpose, and I think it's done to harm, and I'm glad that he stood up for him.
Okay, I should have explained it a little bit better because most people in this audience probably have no idea. I think maybe you know who Jason Aldean is, but I don't know if you know anything about his newest video offering. Okay, so Jason Aldean has a new song called Try That in a Small Town. I listened to it a bunch of times. Brett and I are having a little, he's not agreeing with me. He's not loving that I like the song. I like it because I like Southern rock. I mean, I like that whole thing. They call it country music now, but country music is really what Southern rock used to be, and now it's country music. But anyway, I like the little haunting feeling to it. I like the little, chord progression in it. I like the auto-tune. Okay, he's got a little auto-tune making him sound really cool and good. I mean, and for me, Southern rock has always been, and country music has always been about the same few things. It's been about puppies and babies and flags and guns and God and wife beating and pill popping and snorting and shooting and drinking whiskey until, you pass out, and gambling. I mean, that's kind of what it is, because that's kind of what they write about, is kind of what they know. And I lived down there for a real long time in different places, different portions of it. And I kind of like the music, because I like music. I like Tony Bennett, too. I bet you I know more Frank Sinatra lyrics than you do. Do you know what I'm saying? I just, but now all of a sudden, turns out that this video that he put together to support this song, which ain't completely horrible. Okay, the song's it's not the greatest song I ever heard, but it's not the worst song I ever heard, and it's not the most racist song I ever heard. In fact, I don't hear anything racist in it. I don't. But the video is a little dicey in that the location that you saw there in that little clip of Tomi Lahren, I don't know, talking about how poor Jason Aldean is being singled out by country music television. What? For being, racist in this video. Why, he had nothing to do with the selection of the location for the shooting of his video. Poor little innocent Jason Aldean had no say in his own video location. Right. I mean, of course it's bull. It's garbage. But the problem is that they picked the Maury County Courthouse in his home state of Tennessee, which is one of the most beautiful states I have ever seen in my life. There is no way I'm going to trash Tennessee. It doesn't need trashing. It's gorgeous, okay? But this particular building has a history. And I'm guessing because Jason Aldean was forbidden from learning Tennessee history because it might have made him feel bad or some such crap. Oh, no, that will be the future generation. Okay, so this particular courthouse in Columbia, Tennessee, is the same building where a mob hanged an 18-year-old kid. Same story. I mean, you're going to hear this story every time we talk about, the good old past and what happened to African Americans in this here country because black people were prospering and they were doing well, and white people just got scared that black people were going to replace them or some such crap. And so there was a story that this kid, 18-year-old Henry Choate, had, flirted with or touched or somehow winked at a little white girl or a white girl in 1927. Okay. And the white girl, who was never, ever named, never identified, and never identified him as being the assailant. And in fact, this girl's mother said, please do not do this to Henry. Henry, my daughter doesn't think it was Henry. My daughter doesn't say it was Henry. It wasn't Henry, whatever. And they hung him anyway, and they hung him from the church balcony. They lynched him. And then again, in 1946, at the same damn church, there was a race riot that resulted in the lynching of a future Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall. This small town is full of good old boys, Aldean sings, in his home state of Tennessee. Now, what's really interesting about the location and what's really interesting about the B-roll, let's call it, that plays over his song in the video. Now, I've seen videos that have absolutely nothing to do with the song, which would be something you could say if you wanted to get out from under the pressure of what you put in your video. But that's not what Jason Aldean is saying. No. What's underneath the video, what's playing in B-roll that really does agree with the lyrics that he's singing about try this in a small town, is Black Lives Matter protesters in New York City and Black Lives Matter protesters in Milwaukee and Kenosha, Black Lives Matter protesters across this country during the summer of Black Lives Matter protests. And he's saying that this video is not racist. You've never heard the word racist come out of his mouth, and you will never hear anything in the lyrics that I don't know, does he write them? He says he does, but I looked up the writers, and it ain't him. Like all his songs are written by somebody else, written by a group of people, actually. I looked it up. It's Kelly Lovelace, Neil Thrasher, Tully Kennedy, and Kurt Michael Allison. I don't see Jason Aldean as being the writer of any of this. But anyway, he said what he is singing about, what he features in his song is stuff that's familiar to him from his small town where he grew up. And so he's singing about what's familiar to him. Well, I sort of kind of know, what's familiar to him. And I got to tell you that it's not flag burning. Okay, it isn't.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Okay, so Jason Aldean, here's my thought on songs. Okay, songs. You don't censor music. Okay, this is the world in which I toil. This is the world in which I came up. Okay, this is the world that's familiar to me. I was a DJ. I was a country music DJ, by the way, for many years. That's how I lived in West Texas. Okay, that's what I was doing in Seminole, Texas. I was sitting in a storefront playing classic country music. I mean, classic country music. You're talking about Ferlin Husky and Shelley West, and I liked it. Okay, I didn't know anything about what I was talking about. I had a New York accent, and people thought it was freaking funny. Okay, I used to do a thing called Tradio, where people would call in after church on Sunday. I'd have to play the church shows on Sunday morning, have my little coffee, sit there, listen to the church shows, talking about the scourge of the Mary Jane. And then after that, I did a show called Tradio, okay, where people would call in and they would trade whatever for something else. And this one guy called in and he said, "Darling, I got myself a 2-ton hoist. And I'd like to put that on your list of if anybody's interested, you can give me a call. I'll leave you my number." So now I'm backtracking. I'm recapping all the things I have. I got a green couch. I've got a sofa that's green velvet. I got a sewing machine, and I got a 2-ton horse for sale if anybody can give him a good home. This man calls me up. He goes, "Do you have any idea how big a 2-ton horse would be?" And I was like, "No, isn't that what you said?" "Hoist. It's a hoist for pulling an engine. Don't you know nothing?" Okay. So I liked the country music. And then I worked in Odessa. I worked in Seminole. I worked in Odessa. Odessa, I thought I had hit the big time, man. I was in the same city I lived in. I was playing country music on KOYL, Coil Country, okay? And it was a semi-automated live assist radio station where you had these big reel-to-reels and one triggered the next one. You didn't really have to do much of anything except do the time and temperature at the top of the hour and go, "Oh my God, that's a big tornado." You know what I mean? That was pretty much it. Anyway, I grew to really like country music. And, I've listened to my share of country music that's, just vile. A lot of it's very misogynist. A lot of it is about, segregation. A lot of it is about kicking ass. A lot of it is about brutality. A lot of it is about ugliness. A lot of it is about, pill popping and beer drinking and raising a lot of hell and driving drunk and all those things. And I still don't think any of it should be banned. I didn't think the Dixie Chicks ought to be banned for saying that George Bush, lied us into a war. I mean, and that was Clear Channel that did it. And I was working for them at the time, and it was disgusting. It was really ugly what they did. And, they ruined their careers. I'm not interested in ruining anybody's career because they sing a song that has lyrics that make you think that they're endorsing some weird behavior that you want to engage in. It's art. And art can be interpreted any which way you want to. Any which way. Now, people are saying that Jason Aldean's video is a permission for lynching because of the history of this courthouse. Now, it's not the only history of this courthouse. It's not just 1927. It's also 1933. 1933, an African-American, named Cordy Cheek, black teenager taken from his home. He was beaten. He was castrated. He was lynched after falsely being accused of raping a white girl. I mean, the history of what of where he's standing in this video is knowable. Let's put it that way. I don't know that he knows it, but it's knowable. Okay. And then the B-roll. The B-roll is also, a false representation of what actually went on in the summer of 2020 after George Floyd and the BLM protests. How do I know? Because just now, let's call it reparations, are being made by police forces that wrongly pepper sprayed, wrongly kettled, wrongly corralled. If you're Southern, you don't know what kettling is. If you're Northern, you do. It's corralling people, okay, for the Southerners in the audience and putting them into a tight space by virtue of your police cars or your batons or your pepper spray and putting people into a tiny, tiny little area and then beating them. And that's what went on. And the protesters, the Black Lives Matter protesters in the Bronx, which is a borough in New York, and also in Manhattan, have sued. And I think it was last month, the Bronx was ordered to pay $7 million in reparations and damages to the protesters that they wrongly beat, that they wrongly attacked, that they wrongly pepper sprayed and wrongly arrested. And yesterday, another verdict was reached. And this one, the city of New York has agreed to pay $13 million to hundreds, almost 1,000 people. 1,000, well, it's more than 1,000 people. It was 1,300 protesters who were wrongly arrested by NYPD officers during a whole bunch of protests in different locations all across Manhattan on different days between May 28th and June 4th. So it was many, many days in 18 different locations. Central Park, Barclays Center, Union Square, a place in Brooklyn, all of these. Improper use of pepper spray, excessive force with batons, unlawful tactics such as kettling, and that's when they corralled the protesters into a tight space and encircled them. They used their bicycles. The police used bicycles and police cars to kettle people, to literally run into people to put them into this small space. And now they have to pay $13 million to these protesters. So I don't know that Jason Aldean knows this. Do I think he needs to know it if he's going to use this as evidence that would never happen in a small town? Now, I know what happens in a small town, and I'm telling you, here's what happens in a small town. You go to a Pentecostal church on Wednesday night, and then Wednesday night, you beat your wife. You want to talk about reality? That's kind of what it is. You want to talk about small towns? How about selling pills to kids? How about pill mills? How about, Mingo County? I mean, you want to talk. I don't think he really wants to talk about real small town life and what it involves and what it entails. I don't think he wants to talk about snorting, shooting, chasing the dragon all night long.
Yeah, I didn't see any 14-year-olds with meth mouth in his video. He seemed
Right.
to have left that out.
So, but what is offensive? But still, let it rip. But what is offensive is that he is blaming the people who were abused for abusing their free speech rights. And I don't know, is he saying that in a small town you don't have any free speech rights? Because, and I love, I listened to it a bunch of times, okay? And the lyrics are, we take care of our own kind of a thing. He says that over and over again. We take care of our own. No, you don't. No, you don't. You didn't take care of me when I lived down there. In fact, the Klan came and ran me out of Tishomingo County. So, because they said they had never seen a Jew before and asked if they could feel my horns. And I have a natural bump on my head right here. And I said, go ahead, you want to feel it? I thought it was funny. Oh, well, that night the Klan came and they told me to pack whatever I could in my car and get the hell out of Dodge. And they literally escorted me right over the Mississippi line into Alabama, where the Klan picked me up.
It's the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
A historic lawsuit settlement stemming from the 2020 Black Lives Matter and racial injustice protests here in the city.
New York City has agreed to settle for more than $13 million in the lawsuit on behalf of the roughly 1,300 people arrested or beaten by police during those protests.
Now, many of those people who were arrested or beaten by the NYPD are eligible for nearly $10,000. This is according to the attorneys that filed that lawsuit.
During those protests, officers cornered protesters in tight spaces and hit them with batons and pepper spray and arrested many of them.
Try that in a small town. I mean, I don't understand, like, if he would plead ignorance, if the guy who is singing about try that in a small town, meaning, let the police beat you or something, or give up your First Amendment rights, when you see something really wrong and ugly going on, like, young black men being accused of raping white girls that they didn't rape and hung from the same church that you're filming in front of, or from the same courthouse that you're filming in front of, or a place where, yes, I said, Thurgood Marshall was almost lynched. He was literally almost lynched in front of that courthouse because it was a constant. It was a constant where black kids were constantly being beaten and castrated and lynched and hung after white women would accuse them of looking at them or whistling. It was an epidemic in that particular place where he's from and where he chose to film. The idea that protest is bad, which is what he did. I wish he would just say, I didn't know any better. That would make it, like somewhat palatable. Am I for pulling down his video? Hell no. No, I'm not.
There you and I agree, Randy.
Right.
There
Yeah.
you and I agree. Pulling down, censoring of music and art in any form is obviously no good. But
No good.
But he can't tell me that when he's talking about come to a small town with this, he doesn't mean they're going to break out in a reasonable discourse about politics and freedom in America. No, he means violence. And anytime an artist, just like artists in the past, I don't agree with NWA necessarily inciting violence on police or Public Enemy when they were in their heyday, inciting violence.
They're my friends,
I listened to
Chuck
them.
D is my friend, okay?
Chuck D's the man, and I loved his music, and it was influential to me. But incitement of violence at any point is no good. No, don't ban him. But Jason Aldean should be vilified for this. He should be called out for this. His sales should drop. His endorsements
just
should
call
go
him
away.
ignorant, okay, and get on with it. Because the more that we actually say things like this is a lynching anthem, which a lot of people will say. You know who said that? You know who actually came up with that expression? It was the Justins from Tennessee. The Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, those awesome young legislators who have just about had it with white supremacy in the Tennessee legislature. These are serious kids who really try their very, very best to strive and be excellent and overcome. And they are ignored and they are threatened and they are called names in the elevator in the very legislature in which they were elected to represent the good people of Nashville, Tennessee, which is a massive, major city, and what's the other place in Tennessee? Pearson. I forget. So they're two big cities, and So Justin Jones was on. I guess he was on MSNBC last night. I watch nothing but news, so sometimes it bleeds all together. But I'm sure it was one of the MSNBC shows, because I can't imagine Fox even inviting him. Okay, because they invited Tommy Lauren to talk about it. And he's the one that said this is an anthem for lynching. And he was very, very adamant about what he understood from where he hails, from where he serves, from where he grew up, from the stuff he sees currently in the state legislature. Right? And remember, yesterday in the federal House of Representatives, in the awesome Congress of the United States of America, we saw a congresswoman from Georgia have absolutely no evidence about any wrongdoing by the president's son ever, except that he was addicted to crack cocaine for a period of time in his life where he made very ugly decisions. And because she can't prove anything criminal, because he's going to enter into a plea a bargain next week, the 26th is when he enters his guilty plea on a gun charge. Yeah, a gun charge. Lying on a federal form. That carries a 10-year sentence. But he's going to plead guilty to it. and tax evasion, okay, meaning tax fraud, meaning he didn't report his taxes in a timely manner. Those tax bills have been settled. He has paid those taxes, but he's going to plead guilty to not paying them on time, okay? She couldn't make him more guilty of any other thing, and she wants to, but there's no evidence to prove that he stole or that he took or that he got paid to influence or grease or quid pro quo. She has nothing. So instead, she held up naked pictures of him. Swear to God. So to say that, you know, the Justins in the Tennessee State House aren't seeing racism in their face every day, aren't seeing the lowest, basest attacks on their credibility, on their ability to represent the people of Nashville and Louisville. Oh, no, Louisville's Kentucky, sorry. What is it?
Was it Memphis?
Yeah, Memphis. Thank you. Yeah, Memphis, Tennessee. Don't put it past these people. Don't ever put it past them to go that low, because there is nothing crazy enough that they won't do in order to embarrass or denigrate or harm or cause somebody, emotional suffering and pain. There's nothing.
Can I say one extra thing about Aldean, and I'll stop, is that if there was an issue that I thought would move him to write a song and make a video, it might have been the shooting at his concert in Las Vegas where over 200 victims got shot.
Yeah.
You'd think that might be an issue that would go to the forefront of his production.
Yeah, I know people that were performing that day in Las Vegas, and you know that was a crazy gunman. We never even got an explanation for why he did what he did, and why this man was able to smuggle all these long guns into this freaking hotel on the Vegas Strip and then just open fire on innocent people at a country music concert. I mean, and he does have some lines in this song about his granddaddy gave him a gun and that we're coming after his gun that his granddaddy gave him. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You know, he really needs to plead ignorance and just say, I had no idea that nobody was coming to get my grandpa's gun, and I had no idea that the courthouse was a place where lynchings regularly occurred, even in modern life, to one of the greatest Supreme Court justices this country has ever produced. Right? Just plead ignorance, but he's not pleading ignorance. That's the problem. He's saying that kind of protest that he saw in response to another black man being lynched by police officers by standing on his neck with their hand in their pocket, staring down a camera like, what are you going to do about it? With the most disgusting arrogance about, I'm allowed to do this to anybody I want, especially a black man. And then that erupted into, massive protests where the police were so out of line that they literally used bicycles to hit people. They literally used batons to beat people who were simply exercising their First Amendment right? But in Kenosha, so interesting. When Kyle Rittenhouse decided that he was frightened by the protesters and shot them and killed them, he became the hero. So this is the narrative, that protesting the death of black people is never okay, especially not in his small town. See, and if that's the conclusion that you come to after you go ahead and listen to his song and read the lyrics while you're doing it and look at the video, where he is showing you that protest is bad if you're protesting the death of a black man who was also lynched, and chose to film it in front of a very famous courthouse where many black people were lynched. And he's not saying, I didn't know, or he's not saying anything except that somebody else picked the location. This is what he's saying. Someone else picked it. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that garbage. But do I want to see the song taken down? Do I want to see him retaliated against? Do I want to? No, I don't. I just think people are smart enough and given the right amount of information about what that courthouse is and what these videos represent, and that the people represented in those videos were able to successfully sue various police departments for excessive use of force, which is what exactly they were protesting. then you can make your own decision about whether or not Jason Aldean is a smart man or a man of any value. But I like the song.
I do not.
I hate the video. I hate it. I despise it. I think it's really, really ill-conceived and nasty. I just think it went out of its way to be racist. I do.